Hi everyone, I'm going to give a shout out to Daniel because we just celebrated his 17th birthday. He actually turned 17 in 2 days, but we celebrated his birthday yesterday, and we had a Star Wars theme and watched Star Wars movies and made a Star Wars cake, and I'm going to share that cake with you because it turned out really amazing. But anyways, happy birthday, Dan. Happy 17th. Today we're going to focus on capitalization and punctuation. Now we're not going to go through all the capitalization rules in this lesson, so we're going to go over some of the rules that are really confusing. We're not going to go over like the sentence with a period. Okay. Now we're going to start off first with proper nouns and common nouns, and we're going to help understand what is a proper noun. Now proper nouns are always capitalized. Proper nouns,
the name of something.
Yeah, exactly. Now common nouns are not capitalized, so you need to know what the difference is. Now look at this, Renee Jones. This is a person, she's a woman, and see, we have it capitalized in the proper noun section, and it's not capitalized when you're just talking about a woman, right here. Okay, it's not capitalized. Now look at this one. This is a place, Crystal Lake, Illinois. Place. See how place is not capitalized, but Crystal Lake, Illinois. This is their city or a town, and then this is the state. It's capitalized. So that means the place. Now Mary's Lamb is a poem. So you capitalize titles and those type of things. And also with punctuation, when you are capitalizing, when you are writing down a poem, you need to put quotation marks around it. Now, proper nouns are specific person, place, or thing, and they are capitalized. But common nouns, they're not capitalized and they're not specific. So now we're going to talk about titles, books, titles of books. Now, if you're going to capitalize the title of a book or any titles, then you're going to capitalize the nouns and the adjectives, and you're going to capitalize any verbs or adverbs. Also, you're going to capitalize all the words with 4 or more letters. What you don't capitalize are your articles and your really small prepositions, so like on or in. But if you're going to use the word with, then you would capitalize it because it has 4 letters. You also capitalize the beginning and the last word. You capitalize the first word and the last word of titles in books, or titles, period. Okay? Now, we're also going to talk about high-ranking titles. You capitalize them at the beginning of the title. So, like, see right here at the beginning, then you have their name. So, no matter what, Bob is your proper noun. So you need to know, what is Bob? It's your proper noun. So you have to know, no matter what, your proper nouns are capitalized. But when do we capitalize the titles? That's where it gets really, really confusing. So if it's at the beginning, you capitalize doctor right here. Professor McGonagall. But, so if you see it right here at the beginning, you capitalize doctor. And then here's your proper noun. But look right here where you don't. This is where people get confused. Do I capitalize it or do I not capitalize? Bob is the doctor of the medical facility. Do I capitalize this doctor right here? You don't. Why?
It's not his name.
Oh, okay. It's not part of his name. I like how you said that, Daniel. It's not part of his name. Now, also what will help you, if he is playing the role. If he's playing the role, then you don't capitalize it. But if it's his actual title, then you would capitalize it. If I said Dr. Bob is the doctor of the medical facility, then you would say Dr. Bob. So if you put the doctor in front of it, then you know it needs to be capitalized. But the doctor right here is not capitalized because this is playing the role and this is the actual title. All right, that's super confusing. Now look at Professor McGonagall. See, this is the title of the professor. Okay, that's the reason why professor is capitalized. McGonagall is capitalized because it's a proper noun. President Andrew Jackson. Now, this is the proper noun, so we know that this needs to be capitalized. But president, when is president needing to be capitalized? This is capitalized because it is the title of Andrew. That's his title. Jackson became president of the United States, but here it is the role that he's playing. So you do not capitalize it right here. Now look at this, Officer Richards. This is his title, so it's capitalized, okay? Now, titles can be used with their first names. So you can also say, like my husband's name is Richard. You could say Officer Richard, and that's his first name. Now, it's informal to be able to do that, but it's allowed. And so some people might say, well, no, it's not allowed. And I guess that's their preference, but I've been called Miss Lisa, Mrs. Lisa. You know, if I'm okay with it, then I'm saying it's allowed. So some people say it's allowed and some people don't, but I would say it's allowed to put the first name right here, okay? Or most of the time though, you're going to have the last name, Officer Richards, okay? So now, so look at this. These are different titles that people have. Vice President Richard Allred. So see right here, this is the proper noun, and this is capitalized because it's their title. It comes before the name. Most of the time it comes before the name. Now sometimes you're going to run into an issue in the middle of your sentence where it's not. It sounded like I said snot. Where it's not, but that's where you figure out, is this the title of the person or is it the role of the person? Yes, sweetie. Or you could say Richard, President of the United States, but then that's his role. And so it would not be capitalized. But if you put it as their title, Vice President Richard Allred, then it would be capitalized. So most of the time, if it's in the front, then it's capitalized. If it's after the name, then most likely it's playing a role. Not always, but most likely. Now, Mayor Daniel Busby. See, this is the mayor. It's capitalized. It's the title. And now Daniel Busby is capitalized because it's a proper noun. Make sure you're understanding what proper nouns and common nouns are. Veterinary pathologist David Johnson. See how pathologist and veterinary is capitalized because it's the title, but David and Johnson is capitalized because it's a proper noun. All right? Producer Ramesh. All right? Producer right here is capitalized because this is the title, and then Ramesh or Ramesh, I'm not sure exactly how you would pronounce that. It's the proper noun. It's their name. Titles are capitalized when there is a list of people that have different titles. So also I'm letting you know, in this lesson, I'm not capitalizing a lot of my my sentences unless I am using it as an example sentence, because I just want you to focus on why do I have these capitalized, all right? And not the other reasons why I have capitalizations in sentences, because there's lots of reasons, but I'm focusing on really two main reasons why we're capitalizing, and that's proper nouns and titles and rankings. Okay? That's where we're really focusing on in this lesson. Now, titles are capitalized when there is a list of people that have different titles. So let's say you're going to a conference or something and there's a bunch of different people with different rankings and titles, and so you would make sure that you're capitalizing them for something like that. We want to capitalize titles before the name and lowercase them after the name. We're going to capitalize the titles before the name, and we're going to use the lowercase after the name. So what do we have? The role. If they're playing a role, you're lowercasing them. The role is describing. So if it's going to be a title, you're going to capitalize it, and the title is official. Okay, now here's some example sentences. Professor Christensen is a wonderful biology teacher. Now, this is capitalized. Why, Paul?
Because that is his title.
This is the actual title. And this is capitalized. Why, Daniel?
Because it's his name.
That's his name. That is a proper noun. And why is this capitalized? The class that they're taking. And if it's considered a class, then it has to be capitalized. James Christensen is a professor at Memphis Theological in Tennessee. Now, why is this capitalized?
Because it's his name.
Because it's a proper noun. Exactly, Paul. But why is professor not capitalized?
Because it's the role.
They're playing the role. He is the professor. He's playing the role. Now, why is this?
It's a place.
This is a place.
Proper noun.
This is a proper noun. What's this?
Proper noun.
Proper noun. This is a place. So we are capitalizing it because it's a proper noun. Okay, Dr. Richard saved Paul Riggs. Now, this is capitalized because why?
The title.
This is the title. Why is this capitalized?
It's a proper noun.
This is the proper noun. Why is this capitalized?
Proper noun.
This is the proper noun. All right, Richards is a doctor at Johns Hopkins Hospital. All right, so now we have Richards. Why is this capitalized?
Because it's a proper noun.
This is a proper noun. But why don't we have doctor capitalized?
Because it's just a role.
He's playing the role. He is the doctor, right? It's not his title. Now, if we want to say Dr. Richards is a doctor, so then it would need to be capitalized, right? Whoops, that didn't take. But anyways, but it's not capitalized here because he's playing the role. Why is this capitalized? Johns Hopkins.
Because that's the name of the company.
This is a place and it's a proper noun, so it has to be capitalized. Okay? Now, the rule is, here's the rule. You have the title plus the last name. And that means you capitalize it. Title plus the last name, you capitalize. So if you look at this sentence right here, and I'm featuring Andrew Jackson in this lesson so that you guys can learn more about him. He was a president of the United States, and he served in the Revolutionary War. Andrew Jackson, look, it's capitalized. Why is it capitalized?
Because it's his name.
It's a proper noun. It's his name. It's his actual name, so it is a proper noun. He was a president. Look at this. Why is president not capitalized? It's playing the role. This is a common noun right here. Now, if we put president in front, president would be capitalized if it was in front of it. So, but since it's behind it, this is playing a role. This is not the title. It's a role. Andrew Jackson was a president that supported the Texas annexation. So Texas, why is Texas capitalized?
It's a proper noun.
It's a state. It is a place. It's a proper noun, like what Daniel said. And so that means it has to be capitalized. It is a specific place. So that means you capitalize it. We're going to talk about when you capitalize books, but we're also going to talk about italics. So when you have a book or any like newspaper or any large pieces of work, You italicize them if you're typing it up. Okay? Does that make sense, Paul? You italicize the titles of books, newspapers, large pieces of work, large poems. You italicize it when you're typing, but you underline it if you're handwriting. You can't italicize when you're handwriting. Now, especially do not underline if something is going to be linked to the web. So typically you would try not to underline if you were going to have it typed out, because this can cause confusion, especially if you are linking it to the web, which so many people do now. So things have changed a little bit because we used to italicize and underline. Now we mostly just italicize it when we're typing it out and underline it when it's handwritten. What do we underline? It's titles of books and newspapers and those type of things. Large pieces of work, all right? So different people have different thoughts for this. Some people have different ideas on how they want this to happen. Find out what your boss or your school, your professor wants you to use, and use what they want. Okay? Now remember though, this is the main thing. Books, this is an example, you italicize. Articles we're quoting. We're using quotes around our articles. Okay? What do we do when we put in articles? We use quotes. Now here's the standard. Elephantine. When you think of an elephant, what do you think?
Big.
Huge, enormous, big. When you use this word, you think of something really, really large and big. Elephantine. So think of that. They take italics. Books take italics when you're doing the title of a book, if you're writing it in a piece of work. Microscale. Micro means what? It means small, tiny, teeny, teeny, tiny, where you need a microscope to look at it. And you use quotes. So elephantine, use italics around it. Microscale, use quotes. So that's your basic standard. Elephantine, italics. Books, italics. Articles, quotes. Does that make sense? So kind of use that as a standard. Something huge and large, elephantine. Microscale, teeny, teeny, tiny. Use quotation marks when you're putting it in a piece of work, when you're writing it down. But be consistent with your emphasizing. When you're doing this, when you've chosen, make sure you're being consistent on how you do it. Write it the same way. Use quotation marks when you need to use quotation marks. Microscale pieces of work. So use quotation marks when you microscale pieces of work. Articles. All right, there's an example. So italicize punctuation if it is part of the title itself. So make sure if you have quotation marks around something in the title that you make sure that your quotation marks are also italicized. Now let's move into titles of schools and buildings and stuff. Now, Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. Johns Hopkins is a proper noun right here. It has to be capitalized. Not only that, it is the title. It's a place. It is the exact place. So it needs to be capitalized. But it's also a proper noun in the sense that it's somebody's name. But it's also a place because it's a school. That's the name of the school. School has to be capitalized. And medicine has to be capitalized. See, this is the name of the building. But look what's not capitalized. Yeah, what is this? This is a preposition. Yeah, so this is a preposition, so it's not capitalized. But all of these other main words are capitalized. How do we capitalize buildings? Look, we capitalize it like this. Boston's Children's Hospital. You capitalize every main word. Look, we don't capitalize our small words. Remember, 3 or under, we're not capitalizing our small words. for or above, we capitalize them. So any of our really small prepositions, we're not capitalizing. So look, we have Boston, it's a landmark, or if it's a place, it's a certain landmark. We're going to capitalize it. Boston is a landmark. It's a place. Boston is a landmark. Children's is a landmark. See this right here? Boston's children's. This is an adjective, but it's still capitalized. It's describing the hospital. So every single one of these are capitalized. Landmark, landmark, place. This is a place. Capitalized. But if we just said the hospital, then you do not capitalize it because it's not a certain hospital. We don't know which hospital we're talking about. So it is a common noun if we just use the word hospital. But once we put the actual hospital onto it, you are capitalizing those. I ran into the Boston Children's Hospital when Daniel was admitted. So look, when you're putting it in a sentence, you have to capitalize every one of them. You're talking about that certain hospital. But what if I take Boston's Children's out? Do we still capitalize hospital? No, we don't. If we just say, I ran into the hospital, then hospital would not be capitalized. So now we have when Daniel was admitted. Why is Daniel capitalized?
Because it's his name.
It's exactly. It is a proper noun. It's his name, so it needs to be capitalized. So you need to make sure that you're understanding what a proper noun is and what a common noun is. Remember, proper nouns are capitalized. So we do the same when we're talking about our cities and our states. Our cities or towns are capitalized. If they're two different words, make sure both words are capitalized. And we capitalize our state. Now, if we just leave out the city or the town, do we still capitalize the state? Yeah, we still capitalize the state. So also, you need to make sure that if you're doing a city and a state, you have to have a comma in between them. What's the rule? If you have a city and a state, comma between them.
That's what I meant.
Okay, say it. If you have a city and a state, put a comma between them. When you write out any letters or anything like that, you have to put a comma in between them. It separates them. Then you know that this is the state, this is the city. Okay, capitalize cities and states. So let's look at this one. See how there's two words. Are both of them capitalized? Lake Forest, Illinois. If it was just Lake Illinois, it would still be capitalized. If it's both words, they both need to be capitalized. And then Illinois is capitalized. Now look at this, Illinois. Do we say Illinois? No, we don't. The S tells you that this is French. This is a French word. And so it's silent. When we have a courtesy title, we have formal courtesy titles, Mr., Mrs., these are formal. They have to be capitalized. Some people prefer informal though, where you just use their name. What is this? Dayton, Ohio. What is it?
State.
A city and a state. What is Dayton, Ohio?
A city and state.
Both need to be capitalized and then the comma in between them. Now we're going to talk about and remember, italicized is what?
Underlining.
Elephantine. You write it on the computer. Writing it on the computer, we are using italics. That means we're using books, newspapers, anything large pieces of work. Underline when we're handwriting it though, okay? So you underline when you're handwriting, italicize when you're using the computer. Now let's look at this. Andrew Jackson's mother. Why is Andrew Jackson capitalized?
Because
It's a name.
it's a name.
It's his name. So even though, look, this is an adjective. This is an adjective describing mother, but it's still his name. So if we say American Indians, American is still capitalized. You're describing, but it's still a proper noun. You're still capitalizing it. So we would say Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson is a proper noun. It's capitalized. Now, why is mother capitalized? Is the title. So this is the title of the mother. And so we're capitalizing mother. So remember, look at the title right before it. And that's capitalized, so we're capitalizing mother. So Andrew Jackson's mother nursed him back to health after being a prisoner of war, but she became sick later with cholera and died. So Andrew Jackson, at age 14, he became a prisoner of war. So for the Revolutionary, exactly, it's where the United States won its independence. So Andrew Jackson became a prisoner of war at age 14 for defending their home. And he and his brother were both taken and put into a prisoner of war camp where they both got very sick, and then they were traded for other prisoners of war, and then their mom nursed them both. She nursed Andrew Jackson back to health, and his brother ended up dying from getting sick there. And so she became a nurse after she nursed Andrew Jackson back to health, and he lost all of his brothers, all of his siblings, he lost his mother in the Revolutionary War at age 14, and he became an orphan.
Period at the end.
That's actually, the board is having issues. That looks like a period. But it's not a period. That's not a period, you guys. But she ended up dying later by helping a lot of other soldiers, and then he became an orphan. And he actually became a war hero, and he was an amazing man at the beginning of his life. And we'll go in and feature him after this. Okay, so we've talked about featuring Andrew Jackson in this lesson. So Daniel and Paul really hasn't studied Andrew Jackson, so I really wanted them to study him. Now, Andrew Jackson, I feel, started out as a true hero or just a really good person, and I feel he ended up being really a coward. And even though he was the president of the United States, are you a hero or are you a coward? And so I just decided to feature him. Now, he was the 7th president of the United States, and he was born in 1767. Now, how I actually remember that is that our nation, the United States of America, was born in 1776. And then we just switched those. So he was born during the Revolutionary War. So his whole life, he really just knew so much war. And now what we're going to talk about right here in this lesson is how to prepare for any sort of a talk in church or a presentation in school, how important it is for you to write down, go through your information. You don't have to remember every single thing that you are reading and studying. Pull out things that interest you, that you want to share with other people. I just read a whole bunch of things about Andrew Jackson, and I just put down main words that really stuck out to me, and that's what I want to teach you how to do that. Now, if you notice, I have the rainbow colors up here for our actual rainbow after it rains. It's really important to know that when you're actually doing a report, it's important to change the colors when you're changing topic ideas, because when you look down, you're like, oh, I know exactly where I'm at. When you just use the same color, you lose your place. And then you have to say, oh my gosh, I lost my place. This is taking forever. Where am I? But when you do it in colors and you hit it in topics or lengths of time, and then you won't lose your place as easily. You might lose your place a little bit, but not nearly as easily. Now, if you do not have like a multicolor pen or anything that puts color into something, then you would I would just do dashes and then make sure that there is like 2 spaces or a space in between things. Just making sure that you actually know where that break is between each topic. But I feel it's best to have actual color to be able to do that. It's easy to look at. Not only that, you can take up a little piece of paper because now you don't have to have spaces in between them, right? Now, then you can take up a much smaller piece of paper to be able to get your information down. So I think color is a huge part of being successful when you are giving a talk or doing a report where you're allowed to take words or anything up there to help you present. All right, so now with this presentation, I actually practice 1.5 times. Now you should practice before you present with somebody because you might forget. Maybe you did it 3 weeks ago. And you're like, what does that mean? So it is really important to help you practice and then present right after you've practiced. So I practiced today, and I would recommend practicing until you feel comfortable with presenting. Now we're just going to go ahead and start our presentation, and I'll stop a little bit and talk about things, and I won't present exactly how I would be doing a presentation, but pretty much. Andrew Jackson, so he was born in 1767 and grew up during the American Revolutionary War. But when he was really young, it was a huge part of his life. All of his family were killed during the Revolutionary War. He was the only one ended up being that lived. He was orphaned. Now, he was taken as a POW in Camden, South Carolina. So when he was a POW, why he was taken is because he was defending his homeland from, they called irregulars. And so he was protecting his homeland from the regulars, which were people that were fighting for the United Kingdom, the British, over across the seas. Now, him and his brother were taken. He was 14 years old. So while he was in a POW camp, he was completely malnourished and he contracted smallpox during this time. Yeah. That you are not getting the food that you need. You are starving, you might be getting one item and you're not getting enough, which it causes you to be sick. And a lot of the studies that I've done, smallpox, we do have a vaccination for that, which is a big part of eradicating smallpox. But the main thing for my studies, the main thing that eradicated smallpox is actually being clean and refrigeration and taking care of your food properly. But in the meantime, when he was released from being in the revolutionary, from being a POW, and he was released to his mother, there was a prisoner exchange. Him and his brother were released, and his mother, this is when his mother healed him back to health, but his brother actually died.
Or a prisoner of war.
Yeah. So the brother dies. So now it's just a mother and Andrew Jackson that's living. Now this is when Andrew Jackson's mother decides, I need to go help these other men that are suffering, and she helps them. She contracted cholera and she dies, and now he is an orphan. Now he's an orphan during the American Revolutionary War. Well, let's go on with some more time has passed. Now he's in Tennessee. He is a colonel in the militia in Tennessee. What is a militia?
Like a war army?
It's a group of men that live in in your area, that you protect your town or your county or, you know, just your area, your city. That is a militia, and that's what we had. Instead of police, you had your own militia to protect your town. So while he was part of the militia, he put together 2,000 men to help out with a fight that was happening. He ended up getting a gunshot wound in his shoulder. Now, during this time, he became a war hero, and he put together the Treaty of Fort Jackson, and this is a peace treaty. Now, also, he was asked to go help with the war in 1812, which was the war that the United Kingdom had come over and was helping in Florida, and they came over to help the Spanish. That was part of Florida. Now, Florida wasn't part of the United States at this time, but there was a lot of conflict that was happening with the Spaniards, with the Indians, and there was war happening there. The United States got involved, but soon after, the annexation of Florida happened. What's an annexation? So we're talking about annexation. And what is annexation? It's when something becomes part of something else. So now Florida has now become part of the United States. That's what annexation means. So the annexation of Florida started happening during this time. So the British came in and they helped the Spanish, but they lost. And Andrew Jackson, he became a national hero. He caused the Treaty of Ghent, and that is the treaty for it's the 1812 peace treaty. And he was also asked to bring his militia to New Orleans, and he won. America won the Battle of New Orleans. There was lots of issues with the Indians, with the settlers, and he won the Battle of New Orleans. This assured European power would not contest. It would not take over Florida when this happened. Okay? And then the Treaty of Fort Jackson was signed, but they went into the Creek lands, that's Indian lands. The peace treaty was signed, but insurrection happened. What's insurrection? Violence. So they took prisoners of war and
Killed them.
No, they had prisoners of war, and then there were escapees that happened out of the prisoners of war from when they won in these other treaties. Just a minute, please, sweetie. And the British were involved, and the British were fighting, the Indians were fighting, all these people were fighting, and then Colonel Clinch, he was South Carolina or North Carolina, I don't remember which one. He was the South Carolina or the North Carolina. Colonel Clinch, he captured and then he destroyed the garrison where all of this was happening. And then this happened in 1816 after the peace treaty was signed. Yes, sweetie.
So, an escapee is someone who escaped prison.
Yeah, so that's what, yeah. So there were escapees that happened from the prisoner of war, and they started all of this violence that was going on. Let's go into Andrew Jackson's public life and his political life. Now, during this time, right in here, is when Andrew Jackson purchased his first slave. And I feel that hero, all of this stuff was happening. He became a hero, a war hero, and then he purchased his first slave. And that's where I feel a lot of his decision making was not ethical. But he rose in the public eye. He became wealthy. He actually ended up owning a plantation and owning a lot of slaves. And he purchased, and he didn't own a slave before, but he purchased his slave. But then now he is running for office. Oh, and in the meantime, he got married. So now he's running for office of the United States, right? And during that time, he didn't like how the Republic was being ran. So he's the reason why we have the Democratic Party. He made up that with other people. but he was the main reason we have a Republican Party and a Democratic Party, which I thought was actually super interesting. Now, he was part of the Republican Congress. He received, now during this presidential election, it was a big, huge fight. He completely lost, but he did receive votes from the South, the West, and the Mid-Atlantic states. He was in the House of Representatives, but he lost the election, and there was huge fights over this. Now, during this time, his wife was ostracized by the people in the White House area, in government. She was, because what happened in their marriage, when they met, she was married. She was separated from her husband. She was in a really bad marriage, and they ended up getting together. She wasn't divorced. I don't know if she could be divorced or not, but they ended up living together as husband and wife. And then finally her husband gave her a divorcement. He allowed the divorce to go through on actions of infidelity. So on actions of infidelity. But because of that, the people in the White House mistreated her so badly, and they were so mean to her. They would not go to any dinners that she was at. They treated her horrible. And he said that she died. She died right after, somewhere in here where the election, he lost the election. And he said that she died because of this bad behavior of these other people and how they treated her. And he said, "May God Almighty forgive her murderers." He called them murderers. This is his quote about his wife when she died. "As I know she forgave them." So because of her mistreatment, she died. You say, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." Words do hurt. It's important to be kind. People have broken hearts and broken minds and broken thoughts because of the mistreatment of other people. But anyways, I thought that was interesting. So now he's reelected to be president of the United States. He ran two terms, and he became president for 8 years. So during his term, the post office had mismanagement of funds. And this was during the petticoat controversial. And so there was a huge congressional investigation, which Barry Eaton resigned. And Barry Eaton, he is the main reason. His wife, it's called the petticoat scandal or something like that. His wife caused it. He should not have remained in the cabinetry. He was in Andrew Jackson's cabinet, and that caused a divide. It's because his wife had the same issues. They had the same problems as what happened with Andrew Jackson and his wife. She was completely mistreated, but Barry wasn't a good congressman, and he shouldn't have been in there, but he kept him because Andrew Jackson felt bad for his wife, and then all of this other stuff happened. So now we're going to go into one of the worst things that I think that Andrew Jackson could have done while he was in office. We have the Indian Removal Act, where he offered money to the Cherokee people, and those are American Indians. So he offered the Cherokee people financial aid to move them from where they were. I think they were in South Carolina, but he offered them, they were in a couple of states, to move them from their homeland where they had been for years to Mississippi or for thousands of miles away. And they refused. They said, "No, I don't want to do that. I want to live here." But there was conflict between the white settlers and the American Indians, and they were clashing and causing. And Andrew Jackson, he completely just agreed with the settlers and said, "You have to be removed." So, but he did try money first, and they said, no, I want to stay here. But the Native Americans, they were taken and they were made to move, and they were forced in the Indian Removal Act, and this went through Congress. He forced it, and this is where I feel where you could really see that he has racial issues, especially through this. They were forced out to the Mississippi. 70,000 people died because of this removal act. And it's because of unsanitary conditions. They were forced to move. Lots of children, elderly. I'm sure that really only the strong survived the removal. Which I think this is one of the saddest things that's happened in the American history, in our history, that what happened right here with Andrew Jackson. He completely supported this and forced them out. So now Andrew Jackson, he died when he was 78 years old in 1845. Now remember, he was a Democrat. He made that party. He was a war hero. And then later on, he became a Presbyterian in 1838, which he had religious ties. He wouldn't commit to being a Presbyterian because he said, I don't want people thinking I'm this way or this way. He wouldn't commit to anything. His wife was a Presbyterian. But personally, after studying his life, I think he became a war hero, and he was a really good man. And then he made some bad decisions, and he became a coward. See how you can make a really long talk or a presentation just over scanning? Seriously, this only took me to scan this maybe 30 minutes. And I had my report written about Andrew Jackson, and I scanned the things that I was interested in him to present and let you know what I understood about Andrew Jackson, what the things that I found out was interesting, and then you can present a paper. And that's how I want you guys to understand how to do that, how important it is that you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours if you're going to present something. Now, obviously, if you really want to study somebody's life, you spend hours and hours and hours doing that. But if you need to get something done, then if you really need to get something done, this is a fast way of being able to do that. And it's a great way, really, to learn about somebody's life without having to spend tons of time doing it. Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.